Dragons Dogma 2 places the robustness of a good book in combination with the promise and intrigue of colorful characters and a world that aims to hopefully satisfy players. When playing this game, it created a strong immersion that I immensely enjoyed in the very beginning. The game in the first couple of hours had great pacing, the bosses were so much fun, and the magic was utilized interestingly. As the game went on, the pacing slowed, the story lost its luster, and I started noticing problems within the mechanics that, unfortunately, made it feel like the game was dragging on instead of embracing me in the world that I wanted to fall in love with. What's going on, you guys? It's your Huggable Hipster here, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing my review on Dragons Dogma 2. I was so excited to start Dragons Dogma 2. The cutscenes, the initial story, everything in the first 2 hours grabbed me in and made me feel incredibly excited. From the first boss to adventuring with my pawns, the world was ripe for the picking. Adventuring around the world felt like I was in a mixture of The Witcher and Fallout. I know, odd combo, but hear me out. The Witcher's aesthetic, we can all see how that's viable, but with Fallout, I felt like they were similar because of the NPCs. The Fallout games have incredibly well-written NPCs that bring the world to life. Same goes for this game. The pawns and interacting with them made me incredibly happy and showcased a level of fun, spontaneous camaraderie in the game that I wish more titles would incorporate. The pawns have charm and character that brought them to life in a way that made them feel real. It was like I got to travel with a friend. Another thing I really enjoyed about the pawns was how they took it upon themselves to do a lot of things like bringing a dead pawn to revive or leading the way for certain quests. The pawn is to represent the will of the Arisen, since the Arisen is bound by their will, so the stronger you are as a person, the stronger your pawns will be. While there are really great things about the pawns, let's talk about the things that I found quite troublesome. When it gets towards the end of the game, there is a main story mission that requires you to obtain 15 Worm's Life crystals. After going about fighting a lesser Drake, which was an experience to say the least, I obtained what I needed and I was on my way, or so I thought. When I got back to Ambrosius, the crystals were nowhere to be found in my inventory. Panicked and went to see if I sold them off to someone else, which I know you can't check to see if you sell something off to a vendor, but I was hopeful. They were nowhere to be found, so I decided to make forgeries. Yes, you can make forgeries and copies of certain objects within this game. I made forgeries of the crystals and then checked my inventory and then looked in my pawn's inventory, and lo and behold, the crystals were in my pawn's inventory. If they see that you're carrying a heavier load, they will take things off of your person, which I think is really cool that, pawns can take something from your person and just be like, oh, here, let me lighten your load. But you gotta tell me what you're taking because something from a main mission is very important. So I had a full minute of questioning my existence and wondering if this mechanic was even in the first game. No, I did not play the first Dragons Dogma. After handing over the crystals, the game shifts and proceeds to go into Endgame mode, where you have multiple ways where you can end the game. You are going to want to do a lot of quest lines and different odds and ends and just clearing up a lot of bits and bobs before you go into the end of the game. When you hand over the Worm's Life crystals to Ambrosius, this is it. This is signifying that, okay, you are ready to go into the end of the game. You can skip the Guardian Gigantus and go straight into the last chapter, but if you do that, you're missing out on a lot of story bits that could be fun to go through. Mainlining the story of the game, you unfortunately won't get as much story as you would have had you adventured around and done some side quests / exploring. In my opinion, you shouldn't have to do a massive amount of exploring to get an idea of the story and what it's trying to convey to the player. The way the story was approached by the 4th chapter created this dull, trite feeling where I wasn't getting excited anymore. I was just mindlessly going from area to area, dying a lot, mind you, and hoping there was just one cutscene along the way to beef up the experience. Going from each segment of the map, I found one thing that stood out to me as a mechanic that I did not like in particular: the health system. Every bit of damage you take slowly drains your max health until you rest at an inn or go to a campsite. The campsites become like a beacon of hope in this game and something I look forward to way too often. On the one hand, I like that everything could be at stake for you and your pawns. On the other hand, it was incredibly annoying at nighttime in the game trying to find a campsite and getting one shot by enemies that I couldn't see because the screen was way too dark. My pawns were carrying lanterns, and even that was not enough to light everything up. I could see only what was immediately in front of me, not anything more. I tried fixing the lighting in the game, but it made the quality of the picture rather muddy, so that didn't quite work. This is the only time I've played a game where the nighttime sections were incredibly difficult for me to see/maneuver around, even with my glasses on. So let's dive into the comparison between PC and console, because I played the entirety of this game on Xbox Series X while playing a little bit of it on my PC. Now on PC, there was a lot of stuttering happening, frame drops, crashes. I got through the first hour of the game before it would continuously crash when I would either pause the game or change settings. On the Xbox, however, the game was rather smooth for the most part, besides a few frame stutters here and there. On the console, I don't know if this would qualify as a bug, but it's going to be in this section just in case. Early on the game, when I was in the quest, the Cage Magistrate, I got arrested, and then after I paid the bail and left, anytime I would bump into one of the guards or just a random NPC walking in that area, I got arrested again. Anytime that I left after I paid bail, all of the NPCs that I would bump into would become aggro. I went to Twitter to inquire about this because it seemed like the logical thing to do. I was told to find an inn, rest, and reboot the world so any characters that were aggressed ceased to be so, essentially. This is the last time I run and bump into an NPC. From now on, I am gracefully waddling. While I was on the console, there was also a bug that occurred, more than once mind you, during the Lesser Drake boss battle where it would get stuck in the stairwell. You would think this is a good thing, and luckily for me, it was to a certain degree. It was put in prime position for me and the other pawns to wail in on it, but also it was unfortunate because every time it would get stuck and I would have to do the same thing to either get it unstuck or just let it go, and I would use my magic to just wham the hell out of it. But also, it was unfortunate because it would get stuck there every single time I took that dragon on, and I took that dragon on quite a few times. That boss battle was so much fun, but it was also a doozy with how fast you can get killed if the boss so much as touches you if you are low on health. Thank goodness for the campsite right below the boss. Into each generation, a slayer is born. Oh, whoops, wrong game. Each cycle, or each period, if you will, there is a chosen arisen. Each time an arisen dies or is fallen, it becomes a dragon, which that is so freaking cool. And I wish I saw all of that lore and all of that story goodness the first time I was playing it. I didn't know a lot of these story bits, and I had to do a lot of research and looking up during the time I was writing the article/review I was doing for this game. Now, not getting enough of the story is a result of one or two things that could be going on here. Either A, I wasn't looking carefully enough throughout the game to get the information I desired, or B, the game did an awful job at explaining the core principles of the story through the time I was playing it. By the time the game ends, you encounter the dragon that took your heart. How romantic. You were given two choices, either fight the dragon or walk away and sacrifice the NPC you have become the closest to. Fighting the dragon, in my view, is some of the best dialogue in the entire game and some of the best voice acting. So did I enjoy this game? Yes and no. There were things like the cutscenes, the pawns, and the bosses that I truly enjoyed and got a kick out of seeing how everything worked in tandem. Seeing how the pawns were silly, giving the Arisen high fives after a well-fought match, or some of the one-off lines that the NPC said, a lot of it was comical, witty, and fun. The health system and the pacing of the story, unfortunately, really put me off, and at some points the game was just plain boring and incredibly repetitive, not in a fun way. I get that games have a repetitive nature to them, but this was one of those moments where I didn't feel like the repetitive nature really added anything to the game. I'm also really not a fan of the fact that Capcom added microtransactions into this game. Microtransactions are a key feature in a lot of free-to-play games, so the fact that Capcom is doing this as a high-standing company is just shocking to me. Capcom does not need to utilize those practices, and the fact that they are putting this into a with tax over $70 game is atrocious. The microtransactions are pointless because you can get everything by exploring the world, talking to vendors, doing side quests, doing main quests, literally existing and just playing the game. You can get everything you need to survive within it. Just do yourself a favor, talk to vendors, do side quests, do main quests, exist in the game, play it normally how you would, save your money. Do not get the microtransactions. Please, I implore you. This game was such a mixed bag that I can say, yes, I would recommend it. Search the game carefully, read the notes, and cook a steak that looks ever so real. You guys, that was it for today's video. If you guys have any questions for me, leave them down in the comments below. If you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. May you find your worth in the waking world, dear hunter. Stay casually nerdy, and I'll see you all in the next video. Umbasa.